me okay?
Yes, we can see you okay.
Great.
Yes, yes.
Wonderful. So, thank you for joining this afternoon and welcome to our Saturday Insightful Dialogue series on Zoom. Hope you're all feeling well and ready to hear the importance of becoming an embodiment of experience. What does it even mean? And so we're going to hear about that. I heard this saying a while back that said, when I understand spirituality, it touches my heart. But when I apply spirituality, then it touches the heart of others. So, in other words, becoming the embodiment of what I hold dear to my heart. So, it is great that you have decided, all of you, to join for this quite deep topic and conversation on how to become an embodiment. And our special speaker for this week's insightful dialogue is our brother and BK Tyrone Jackson. And Tyrone, he has been the student of the Brahma Kumaris for over 17 years and has been teaching Raja Yoga uh, teachings for the past 6 years or so, or even more. And he has been the healthcare professional in the nursing home industry and working primarily with the residents that they have to deal with Alzheimer's. And he's been doing that for over 15 years. And then he started, of course, his own practice as a life and spiritual coach for you know, for personal growth, and also a Reiki master practitioner and the Raja Yoga teacher. So, more importantly, with all these different things that we do in this drama of life, what I know of Tyrone is that he is full of love for truth, God, and self knowing. And he always demonstrated full respect, first for himself, but also for all those around him and for nature. And um, his every time his presence, with his high frequency vibrations, is just made the conversation deep and meaningful. And when we were done, I always felt that I came out of this conversation richer and fuller. So without taking any more of this precious time, that we have together, I like to just present this opportunity that you too might get fuller by what you get to hear and by what he has to share. Brother Tyrone, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It feels very nice being here again. Ah, thank you all for being here. Yes, I'm looking forward to spending the next hour or so, really close to an hour and a half to 2 hours with you, talking about becoming the embodiment of experience. And for me, the journey really started with understanding consciousness. And it's interesting that, excuse me, the topic of consciousness seems to be very foreign for most individuals, although it is consciousness itself that allows us to become the embodiment of experience, or even to have experiences as human beings. So throughout this dialogue, will ask a lot of questions, and it's also to get you to think. So you can raise your hand. Perhaps I'll get some help from the other host. as far as who's raising your hand, or you can just simply answer the question, or I will stop a period of time for you to ask questions. I'm just going to take a sip of water here. So I'm going to start off by sharing my screen. So we're talking about becoming the embodiment of experience. And I've learned through really having a deep dive into consciousness that I cannot take any words for granted. So we have to understand what we mean by experience, and we also need to know what embodiment is so that we have a sense of how we can take these experiences, which is our life. Our life is a chain of experiences that never, ever, ever really stops. And how do we utilize these experiences in a way that we can embody them so that we can become even more powerful by them? And as you can see here on the first screen, I wrote here that becoming empowered through being an embodiment of experience really has mostly to do with awakening our consciousness. So even when I say that, I'm pretty much stating from the beginning that most of the time our full consciousness or our awareness of consciousness is asleep. You know, one question I ask people is, when you get up in the morning, are you awake? Are you truly awake? Or are you just pushing your button and you're just going through life based on routines and habits? So therefore, you're not necessarily awake, but you're just going through motions. So when we talk about consciousness, so that's where we're going to start. We're going to really look to creating an understanding of consciousness. And the more we understand consciousness, the more we can become empowered by our experiences or use our experiences in an empowering way. So the question is, what is the value of consciousness? You know, is life based on consciousness? If so, why? So there are these specific words that connect to consciousness. And I'm going to ask you as I say them to, you can answer this to yourself. Are you really aware of what each of these words mean? And if you're aware of what they mean, how do they connect to who you are or what you are? So one of the first word is conscious. So, we say, oh, my conscious is biting. So what does it mean? What is this conscious? And of course, from consciousness, we get consciousness. So what is this conscious? And then we have conscient. So we're conscient beings. What does it mean to be a conscient being? And of course, the term consciousness, and I'll wrap that up in a package and put a bow on it, and I'll say awareness. So all those words really associate with each other. How well do we understand consciousness? To the point that when we are living our life, we are truly conscious, and therefore we can use our experiences in an empowering way. So you can say we're going to make the paradigm shift today. So we pretty much, I would say most people take life for granted. We get up in the morning, we do what we do, and we're mostly in a reactive state because we may not be, or I will take a leap in saying most of the time we're not conscious. We're just moving through life and doing what we know how to do. And if something new comes up, we tend to really freeze, or we back up, or we may have a hard time dealing with it. We approach life with expectations. We want things to happen a certain way. So even if it rains, it could cause our whole day to fall apart. So I'm saying, where is the consciousness in that when the weather determines our mood or our state of being? So are we human beings looking to have a spiritual experience, or are we spiritual beings having a human experience? And I would dare say to you that the key or the answer to empowerment is understanding the difference between the two. Because if we're considering ourselves to be human beings looking to have a spiritual experience, it really means that we're not awake and that we're allowing life to determine for us the outcome of our experiences. Yet, if we are spiritual beings having a human experience, then what we're doing is allowing our beingness, which is consciousness itself, to drive the experiences and derive power through the experiences. So I'm just going to stop here for a second and ask if there's any questions. Is there any thoughts so far? Okay, so we move on. So what is conscious awareness in relation to empowerment? Anyone have a thought about that? Anyone care to answer that question? So the key word here is awareness, because we cannot live without consciousness, because we are fully conscious beings, but are we aware conscious beings? So it is the awareness itself that enables the empowerment. The less aware we are, the less power we have. The less we're aware we are, we anticipate things being a certain way so that we can be comfortable in the space we're in. And by doing, we're giving our power away to circumstances, situations, persons, places, people, and things, because we're looking at the external world as the source of our power. So we don't necessarily have to be aware. We just have to accept what's coming in our direction, and hopefully it's going to please us or present to us what's going to make us comfortable. Of course, we know the issue or the problem with that is life does not work that way. It doesn't always give us what we think what we expect, and it's always challenging us. You know, to me, that's important to understand. Life will always challenge us. So what life's job to do, one can say, is to make us aware. If we're not aware, we get stressed out, we become full of anxiety, we get sad, we feel hurt, we get jealous, we get anger, we become angry. All those are telling us we're not aware. Yes, we may be conscious of the situation, but we're not using that situation in a way that empowers us through our awareness. We could also call this awareness mindfulness. And mindfulness is being fully present in the moment and having an experience of the situation from two perspectives. One of the perspectives is from experiencing what is happening. So it comes to the body, it may excite emotions, it tends to create thoughts, and that causes a response or reaction, which determines how the body functions. So the brain may cause glands that secrete certain hormones, which make our heart raise, or it may make us go into fight or flight, because we're not necessarily fully conscious of the situation, and we're allowing the experience to live within the experience. The second perspective, as far as being consciously aware, is being the observer. So once the experience is happening, the observer is actually the driver of the experience. The observer is the highest sense of consciousness, the consciousness that exists outside or beyond the body. And when we allow ourselves to experience this state of consciousness, this awareness, no matter what is going on in our surroundings or in our life, we're able to interpret it in a way that brings benefit to us. So we're empowered by it. We can move beyond the stressors that are causing the circumstances or situation, and we can alleviate those stressors because we become aware of why it's happening, and we make a conscious shift to handle things differently or to approach them in a different manner. So far, so good. Any questions, any thoughts? The key again is consciousness. I mean, we're all conscious now. How much are we aware of our consciousness? So that's what I'm hoping to create that paradigm shift about. It's not enough just to be conscious of the space you're in. It's more important to be aware of how you're holding the consciousness of the space that you're in, how you're responding to it, what your thoughts are doing, how your emotions are acting up or not acting up, what's going on in your body. All those things are an aspect of conscious awareness. So this is a question I like asking, even when I'm out in the market. I stop people and say, oh, can I ask you a question? And they kind of look at me like, sure. And I say, what is consciousness? And the joy I get is watching their faces as they ponder the question I ask. Some people don't even have an answer. Some people come up with something that is, one can say is a good definition, some come close. But the interesting thing is, why doesn't everyone understand what consciousness is? How can we live without understanding truly what consciousness is? Sure, we are conscious, but do we understand consciousness, or do we take consciousness for granted? So the importance is understanding consciousness fully. So consciousness, the ability of a being, and I underlined the word being here. So we'll come back to that because it's important to really and fully understand being. The ability of a being to recognize patterns. So just that first part of the sentence is critically important. How often do we repeat the same patterns looking for a different result? And when we don't get the different result, we get angry, or we wonder what is wrong with life, that life is not changing to meet us so that the patterns that we're running will give us what we believe we should have. So if we're, and I can put the word aware here, if we have aware consciousness, then we understand that these patterns that we're experiencing is really telling us something about our belief system. So this understanding is a part of what is necessary to become empowered. Without this recognition, we keep going through the same patterns over and over and over, expecting, and maybe with different people, but it's the same pattern, and maybe in different places, but it's the same pattern, and maybe at work and at home, but it's the same pattern, and we get frustrated, maybe angry, maybe feel hurt, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the ability of a being to recognize the patterns and meaning with respect to events taking place, both within oneself, and I underline oneself here. So again, both within oneself and in the realm in which the self exists and operates. Now, I'd really appreciate if someone can tell me what they think all this means. Is there a brave soul out there that would like to speak up?
Yeah, your conscious experience, they will be constantly shifting also, right? From one moment to the other, depending on what you are doing or what happened at that particular moment. Let's say if I'm watching you here and somebody knocks the door, and all of a sudden, like, my consciousness or my awareness goes somewhere else.
Yes, yes. You have to remember in this definition, they talk about being and oneself. So is the being and the oneself the same? Now, this is a challenging question. Does anyone want to answer it? So I would dare to say that the being and oneself is not the same. And to really understand this point here allows us to really understand and aware consciousness, because oneself could mean simply the body. Both within the body and in the realm, in the reality in which the self, the body, along with the being, exists and operates. So most of the time we're relating to life as the one self. I am this body. So whatever is going on in the surroundings where this body is, like someone knocking on the door, I can respond from, I could be shocked initially and react that way, and the body may secrete hormones, and I can get anxious. So that's from the inside within the body. So the body itself has its own reaction, and the being, and this is the shift right here, this is the incredible shift. The being understands that what they're experiencing is the chemical reaction taking place in the body. So I was stunned by this, yet I don't have to react in fear because I understand this is natural for the body to do. So I trust everyone is connecting to where I'm going with this. Most of the time we're stuck in what is called body consciousness, or the consciousness of the body, and we don't allow the being, which is the consciousness itself, and we'll talk more about this, to be aware of, oh, I see how I feel about this. Oh, I see my emotions, or the emotions attached to this character that I'm playing, is acting out because it believes it's hurt. But I realize it's not hurt, it's just acting insecure. So I need to really learn how to be more secure about myself. So this experience is telling me I'm insecure because I'm reacting to what someone is saying to me. And they might just tell me they don't like my dress or my shirt or my pants or my car or whatever. And I'm feeling hurt and rejected. But that doesn't make any sense because I'm not what I'm wearing. I'm not what I'm driving. So why am I reacting unless I am insecure? So I'm taking the experience, and from the place of awareness, the body and what the body is doing with this experience is teaching me how I'm looking at life through this body. The ability of the being, which is the seat of consciousness. Consciousness starts in the being because the being truly is consciousness itself. So when I am not awake, and when I'm saying I'm saying when I'm not consciously aware, then what takes place within oneself, within the body and the surroundings of the body run my life. Because I keep my level of consciousness in the experience. I live as though the experience has power over me. This is key. I live as if the experience has power over me. Why? Because because the body is giving feelings of emotions, and I attach myself to emotions and say, oh, you just hurt me? Well, the emotions aren't necessarily telling me that I'm hurt. They're telling me that I'm reacting to the situation in a hurt way. The emotions are like a gauge, and whatever way that gauge moves is telling conscious awareness, wow, I must really be attached to this situation. Look how this body is reacting. I need to look at that. This situation is telling me I need to work on a certain aspect of myself. Does that make sense? Any thoughts? So the ability to do what? So consciousness is it the ability to act in a powerful way. So the ability to act in a powerful way by the being when it recognizes the patterns and meanings with respect to events, place, both within the body and in the reality or space, surroundings in which the self, the person, exists and operates. Does that simplify it? Yeah. So you can even think of a situation or circumstance that you've been in, and when something external happened and made you get angry, you go, why did you make me get angry? And, you know, I've learned a long time ago, no one is making me be angry. If I'm consciously aware and I move to anger, I realize that there's my relationship to what is going on outside of me, I'm giving my power to. Because if I am saying you made me get angry, then I'm saying what's outside of me. This goes back to both within and within oneself in the realm, what's outside of oneself. I give my power away. You know, yeah, I mean, there have been people who get angry because people are looking at them a certain way, and they don't like the way people are looking at them. So where is the power? Is the power within one's sense or state of consciousness, or have they placed their consciousness in the way they're being looked at, and now their mind is running a scenario. That person is looking at me a certain way. So therefore, now they're also giving their power to a story they're telling themselves. So the consciousness becomes the story. How real is the story? Probably not at all. It's probably made up because of what might have happened 5 minutes ago, a week ago, a year ago, maybe 20 years ago. And there's that pattern of insecurity or self-doubt, et cetera, et cetera. So when we look at consciousness and the situation happens and we're giving our power away, or we're blaming external circumstances for it, it really means that we're not consciously aware. That we, instead of using our power to discern, an important word, using our power to discern the situation, what we end up doing is giving our power away, then feel powerless, blame, maybe go into depression, feel sad, feel hurt, jealous, angry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So one of the great purposes of meditation is really to move to that place of experiencing the self as consciousness. It's like peeling away the oneself, you know, that everything that's not the being, not the consciousness itself. So one can say, oh, this is me. This is this is what holds all the power. And we need to step out of the roles, step off the stage of life, because we get drawn in to the reality of life and the patterns and the noise and the sounds and the sensations, which really entice us to stay in our bodies most of the time, particularly if we have desires or we like something to taste or smell or look. So now we're bringing our consciousness to live within our interrelationship with sensations through the five senses, instead of moving it out. Yes, something tastes good, but that taste shouldn't be the power. It shouldn't be overwhelmingly what draws me away of understanding, yes, that tastes good. And something may taste, we may consider taste horrible, but that what tastes horrible may taste good for someone else. So again, we can say that a lot of the choices we make are biased, so that if we really look at it at a place of consciousness, we may be able to discern why we like one flavor more than the other. And we might end up trying something we didn't like before and have a different perspective, and all of a sudden say, well, you know, that really doesn't taste as bad as I thought it did. So Two words, human beings are human beings. Can anyone explain to me why I put these two up here, these two specific different ways of looking at human beings?
Is it?
Yes.
Go ahead. Okay. Is it because human is like a body consciousness and being is soul consciousness, and when that combines, it becomes human beings?
Yeah, so it's so you know that the first one is not correct.
Right.
It's not one thing actually. And if you try to type that in on the computer, it's going to say it's wrong. It chooses the second one.
Human.
So although we say human being, we understand it's the human and the being being human. And it's really important to understand this because it really allows you to have a greater sense of consciousness again and awaken consciousness. You know, again, people say, oh, I'm only human. And I laugh and I go, no, you're not only human. You're a human being. And probably the issues you're having is because you're forgetting the being part. And you're living totally your life through the experience of the body without the awareness, without the observer that could correct or intervene or give the support necessary to discern what the experiences are that are coming through the body, which means emotions, which means brain, which means thoughts, which are in the mind, and then discern what they're teaching us. Because our experiences are just that. They're teaching tools, our learning tools. But when we take the circumstances and situations for granted and say, I'm only human, we believe we don't have any power and life is treating us badly. How dare life do this to me? Why did she say that to me? Why didn't I get the job, etc.? Why is it raining? I hate it when it rains. It ruins my whole day. That's human. That's without an intellect, without a deep understanding that life does what life does. It treats no one better than it treats the other person. What makes a person have a more joyful life is their degree of conscious awareness. So they learn as they go along, are able to adjust to circumstances and situations. They learn to not allow themselves to be trapped by circumstances, situations, persons, places, and things in life. Yes, to enjoy them. Yes, to have a relationship with them, but not be trapped into them. So they become a part of our identity. My car, meaning, oh, I am the car. So if you touch the car, I'm going to feel you're hurting me. If you talk badly about the car, I'm going to feel you're hurting me. My dress, my. So it's interesting how we human beings have started to connect our identities to external things, to our house, to our neighborhood, to our religion, to our political party, et cetera, So when someone speaks unkindly towards any of those things, we react as though they're speaking to us because we're attached to them. And our consciousness, and I'll even go as far as say our conscious identity, then holds our power. Not our consciousness, but the identities that we create through consciousness holds our power. So if someone does something to our conscious identity, we believe that it's happening to us. So then again, we're in the human stage. We haven't raised our conscious enough to say, whoa, they can say anything they want about the political party I choose. That's their right. That doesn't do anything to me. And maybe even what they said, I need to pay attention to because maybe I can understand more about them and why they're saying it. So now I'm empowered by someone talking badly about something that I have an identity to. Any thoughts? So this means that we are beings, and the being that we are is consciousness itself. How does that feel? The being that you are, not the human part, the being. This is what meditation is all about, experiencing the being. So experiencing the unlimited nature of consciousness. So if someone says, I don't like your such and such, it doesn't bother me because it's so small compared to the consciousness that I am. And what I am is just what I identify with is just a tool for me to have an experience, to have a greater understanding of the reality I am and how I can use consciousness in a beneficial way. How I can use my conscious awareness to not only benefit me, but to benefit everyone around me, raising vibrations as I go along. The body is not conscious. Our emotions are not conscious. Our thoughts are not conscious. It is the being we are which is conscious. Yet we act as though they are conscious every day when we give them power over our intellect. So if someone says something nasty to us and we're reacting to it, we haven't moved to a place, a higher stage or state of consciousness where we realize they are entitled to their opinion. And I have gone so far enough to come to a place of understanding if I'm reacting it, I must be reacting from the body because the body is representative of our ego. The ego is not consciousness. It's basically the illusion we carry of who we are. It's what makes us sensitive to certain things and afraid of other things, or like certain things and not like other things, or want to look a certain way and want people to appreciate the way we look. So the ego is this personality that we create, this projection we hold by which we go through life. And that personality, that ego, pretty much tells us what our experiences are. Yet if we allow ourselves to keep our consciousness based on our identity, then we get shame, hurt, anger, jealousy, doubt, fear, etc., etc. If we're consciously aware and someone says, wow, you're so dumb, I might say to myself, I wonder why they're saying that. Maybe I should ask them why they're saying that. Because I want to be empowered by my experience. So I'm going to embody the experience, meaning taking it to a level of conscious intellect to say, wow, I know I'm not dumb. They're entitled to their opinion, but maybe they're seeing something I'm not. So let me ask them, you know what, I don't understand why you're saying I'm dumb. Can you really tell me? And if they just say, I think you're dumb, I just think you're dumb, then because I'm not in my body and reacting to what they're saying, I can say, oh, that's just their opinion. And what is it based on? Apparently nothing. But the person on the other hand can say, well, you keep doing that same thing and you've been doing it now for a year and you know it's not going to go anywhere. So why are you doing it? You must be dumb. And then I can say, wow, I'm so glad this person called me dumb because I would have never become aware of what's going on. So now I've been empowered by the circumstances and situation of my experience because I've took the energy of the experience and didn't keep it within the ego extent, body, emotions, thoughts, and mind, and brain, because all those components work together. But I moved it out of that sphere of the human and into the sphere of being where consciousness initiates from. Any thoughts? Any questions? I mean, it really goes as far as when people ask us who we are. I mean, it's common sense in the sense that we introduce ourselves based on our ego. Yet at the same time, it's important for us to remind myself, this is how I present myself, but this is not who I am. I present myself through my humanness, but I am the being, and the being is powerful, and the being determines my relationship with life. Not the human, not what I do, but what I am. And it's a powerful difference, an incredibly powerful difference, because the human is almost like what I'm putting out there to have experience, so I can evolve and grow. And here's a word I love to use, so I can mature. So I can mature mentally and emotionally. And just because we're adults doesn't mean we're mature. And you can always tell your degree of maturity by the way you, I'll put it this way, you can always tell your degree of maturity by choosing to either respond or to react. The more reactive we are in a circumstance, the less mature we are, the less evolved we are. So therefore, we need to become more consciously aware so we can take experiences and move them out of the realm of immaturity, of tied up in emotion, tied up in thoughts of the past, blaming other people for circumstances and situations. That's all based on immature intellect, and more the intellect comes into play, the more we move to that higher state of consciousness or into beingness, being consciously aware, the less we're tied up in our emotions and the more powerful. So simply everything I said, this answers it. Awakened consciousness is self-empowerment, awareness. And there's this whole movement of mindfulness. That's what aware consciousness is. Mindfulness is being in the moment, not letting past events interfere with present experiences, not letting past events influence present experiences. Therefore, where we bring the experiences in, we allow for us to have a sense, a full sense of the experience, yet we take it away from the consciousness of the body and we bring it up into our beingness. So we have a greater understanding. Self-empowerment is discerning power. We can discern a reason for the outcome of the situation. How did I participate in that situation to cause the results and not like it? So what do I have to do? What do I have to learn? What do I have to bring forward so that next time I have this experience, I do it in an empowered way instead of a disempowered way, by expecting other people to give me what I want so I can feel better about myself? That's not consciousness. If anything, it's really deciding I'm not capable of being powerful. And I'm telling all of you, we're all incredibly powerful. We just have to use our power. We just have to commit to not allowing ourselves to blame circumstances and situations, taking experiences and disassemble them, and so that we can understand what is the experience teaching us. That's awakened consciousness. That's awareness. That's not taking life for granted. That is utilizing the intellect, which really ties incredibly into consciousness. Consciousness' first tool is the intellect. And this intellect relates and parallels with intuition. It's beyond the bodily experience. It's awareness itself. It's consciousness itself. It's knowledge itself. Any thoughts? Any questions? So it sounds like everyone is with me going down the rabbit hole, taking this Alice in Wonderland journey.
Yes.
So what's going on with your consciousness? Are you really beginning to realize how awesome you are and that you're choosing no longer to limit yourself? That's the whole thing. I am not a limited being. So why am I choosing to see this circumstance and situation from one point of view? How many different points of view are there to every single situation? Can you imagine taking 10 people, showing them a movie, and at the end of the movie, ask the 10 people what they saw? Are they all going to say the exact same thing? Of course not. So they're going to see it based on their degree or how they use their level of consciousness or where their consciousness is coming from. Some may just focus on the emotional aspect. Some may talk about the scenery and how beautiful it was and the camera's scene. Some maybe think it would be in their head and be relating it to themselves and life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So each point of view is valid within itself. The more consciously aware we are, we start integrating almost all these points of view into every circumstances and situation that we encounter, because we're not limited by a small personality and disempowered personality. So awakened consciousness, and we can even say awakened consciousness is being aware of yourself. Oh, I'm the one who's in charge. The body isn't? Oh, circumstances and situations aren't? Oh, you mean I am in charge? And I am greater than this body? This body is going to perish, but I'm not? Wow. So I can determine the outcomes of circumstances and situations of my life by the choices I make. And I can even say the knowledgeable choices I make. You know, they talk now about EQ, IQ, and SQ now. So there's, you know, the intelligence quota, emotional intelligence, and also spiritual intelligence, which is really about conscious awareness. So we've been evolving beyond the fact of using the tools of consciousness to affect us in a hurtful or in a way that doesn't benefit our growth. And I'll use this word again, our maturity. Are we evolving? Are we still in the same patterns? Are we still seeing things the same way that cause us pain? Are we still accepting things about ourselves that are impeding our growth? I almost drowned twice. And the more I understood consciousness, I realized one of the things I had was fear of going and spending time swimming in deep water. So I had the opportunity to go to Mexico, where a friend of mine taught scuba diving. And I was determined to move my conscious experience away from the fear and move it into an awakened consciousness, which meant I had to understand, yes, the body was holding fear. I related my fear to going into deep water. So I had to say to myself, okay, no matter what the body is telling me, I need to move myself to understanding that if I approach this in a mature or even an intelligent way, I can go into deep water. So I went through the written test. I passed the written test. I went into the pool with all my scuba gear on, did really well. Now I'm in the boat, and the boat is going up and down and up and down. And the instructor says, you know, this is really not the best day for you to take your first dive, because the swells mean the distance the water would go up and down was about 2 feet. So I thought, wow, this is really perfect. Because if I'm right and I trust myself, I'll still be able to come through this, and I will learn that I can conquer my fear. I can empower myself. So I'm sitting on the side of the boat and with my back to the water, and the instructor says, okay, on a count of 3, lean back and fall into the water. As soon as he said that, my fear engaged. And from a conscious point of view of being aware of the fear, I said to myself, or to the mind perhaps, don't think. And in that moment, I did not pay any attention to the fear. I put my hand on the regulator, which was in my mouth to keep it from coming out when I fell in the water. I put my other hand on my mask to keep it from falling when I went into the water. I went back and ended up in the water. The part of the gear that holds the tank on was inflated with air. So I floated and I came up and I said, wow, this is a lot easier than I thought. So I hope you understand why I'm using this situation. If we live in the energy of the experience, that means we're not learning from the experience and giving our power to where we were when we weren't seeing the experience or relating to the experience from a mature place, from a place of conscious awareness, moving it above the emotion into the intellect, which is one of the most subtle aspects of consciousness. The most powerful stage of consciousness is the recognition of itself as a power source. I'll say that again. The most powerful stage of consciousness is the recognition of itself as a power source of all its experiences and expressions. It is consciousness itself that has the last word. So if we're living from the identity of the body or body consciousness, then we're not allowing ourselves to approach circumstances, situations, people, places, or things from a mature, evolved, beneficial, intelligent, conscious, aware place. So how is consciousness aware? Anyone care to answer that question? Anyone have any thoughts? So I've mentioned the tools of awareness as I've been moving through this presentation. One, I'll start pretty much from the lowest aspect, and that is the body. Consciousness becomes aware through the body, the 5 senses of the body, how the brain works, the hormones that are secreted when certain thoughts and emotions affect the body, and the circumstances and situations in which the body is going through. That goes back to that definition of consciousness. The one self, which is the body. So consciousness is using these vehicles, the vehicle by which that you're watching this video. That's how consciousness is being aware. The eyes are a tool of consciousness. The mind, now that you're taking what you're seeing and hearing through the ears, which are a tool of consciousness, and it goes into the mind, and the mind has thoughts about it. So the thoughts are a tool of consciousness. The mind is just a screen in which these thoughts are projected on. And one could see that the level of conscious awareness becomes more subtle. The body is the grossest. Emotions, which are almost like an energetic consciousness that creates the experience within the body, that implements or excites certain thoughts. I mean, 2 people can see the same circumstances or situations and have different emotional reactions of them, and then in turn create different thoughts about what they're experiencing. So we could say both of them are right. And, there's this saying, if you think you can, If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Because what we're doing is planting an experience and expressions within consciousness. And if we don't bring it to the being, then we can discern the meaning of the experiences or the thoughts or the emotions or what the body is going through. Next, I'd say is the intellect and feelings. And I really connect intellect, feelings, intuition almost closely to being the same things experienced in different ways. The intellect is the most subtle form of consciousness. And the beauty of its subtleness means it's closer to the truth than thoughts, emotions, and the body. The body can lie, the emotions can lie, and the mind can lie. And the brain just follows what those things do. So to understand that, to really know the truth, we have to allow ourselves to, excuse the expression, but it works perfectly, rise above the experience. To move to the point of view of the observer, so that the intellect is engaged and it recognizes the truth, because consciousness is truth personified. So the more we allow our experiences to rise up beyond the confining constraints of the emotional sense of our identity and free ourselves from the interpretations that come through the body and emotions. And sometimes it takes a while to make that shift. Sometimes you have to either go through a breathing, you have to watch your breath, sometimes you have to practice mindfulness, sometimes you may need to meditate, sometimes you may need to take a shower, whatever you need to pull you out of that experience so that you can move to a place where you can step out of the energy of the experience so that you have the clarity of intellect. And a lot of times our intuition will kick in and all of a sudden we'll get a sense of what the truth is. A deep sense of the truth. So body, mind, thoughts, and emotions, intellect, feelings, and intuition, and self-awareness. And self-awareness through meditation. So when we sit and meditate, the whole object of meditating is to be able to unfold. Peel away the body, because we don't need it, because we don't need to take the body into have an experience of ourself. We need to have the body to experience our identity or what we're doing, but not the self, not consciousness. Peel away the mind, which means to alleviate thoughts that connect us to the body or to body activities, which in turn means to peel away the emotions that are connected to those thoughts that connect us to the body or body activities. So then we really become into a clear place where it's just about feelings. And I use the word intellect, but not in the sense of intellectualizing. Intellect in the sense of knowledge, of knowing, of awareness. And that awareness, one can easily connect to feelings and intuition. So we said body, mind, thoughts, and emotions, intellect, feelings, and intuition, and self-awareness through meditation is how consciousness becomes aware. So the beauty is when we sit in meditation and we become aware of ourselves without the body, without the thinking of any identity that comes through the thoughts attached to what we did at work, or grocery shopping, all those things pull us back into the consciousness of the body, which doesn't allow us to reach that level of divine knowing without having an experience of it. So again, when we're looking or when we're having a full experience of a human being, we can bring that divine knowing to experiences in time so that we don't have to react, that we can just move to a place of understanding and be not only beneficial to ourselves, but we become beneficial to that moment and the experience we're having, and beneficial to the people we're having the experience with. What is awareness, and what are the parameters of awareness? And I mentioned before, awareness is really unlimited. It only becomes limited when we're looking at it or experiencing it through the body. So as we can learn to hold on to that place we experience in meditation while we're using the body, it allows us then to bring in the unlimited knowing that comes from conscious awareness, and then bring it into the body as power, discerning power that allows us to embody experiences as a growth, so that we can evolve through life and become mature, more mature through our experience, not less mature or stunted, but more mature, because we start utilizing what we're experiencing. And I'll even change that word. We start utilizing what we're learning through our experience to empower and drive our life to maturity, peace, happiness, joy, becoming more loving, or really understanding what love is. So we're aware we have a body, but we are not the body. So it may be important to understand or be aware of how the body works. So when we're having experiences through the body, we can say, oh, I'm having this experience through the body. I am not the body. This is not happening to me. It's happening through the body and my connection to the identity of the body. And I am receiving the messages that are coming through that. The same thing with emotions, the same thing with thoughts. I'm not this body. I'm not the emotions that are created through the experiences from this body. I'm not the thoughts that are created through that either. They're just tools that allow me to understand or comprehend how I'm interpreting the circumstances and situations of the moment. When I can really allow myself, and I say to a lot of people, when you're sitting and meditating, that's just the beginning. We sit and meditate to shift, to come to that place of saying, oh, I'm here. I'm experiencing myself. This is who I am. This unlimited, beautiful, radiant being of love, beauty, peace, power, and bliss. This is me. So when the time, quote unquote, the time is up for meditation, it's really it's just starting. The goal is not to lose that awareness, but now start having a walking meditation. So no matter what's happening, you're still connected to that space of self-awareness, the space from which you can discern those experiences, which means you really have to surrender being attached to, the joy of being a body. So there is some withdrawal there, or what one can call withdrawal, because we're really attached to our bodily experience, even when they don't create the greatest joy, because it's the sensations that we experience from the body. They're so gross in nature that they keep pulling us. You can say the inertia from them keep bringing us back into the body, where consciousness is this subtle, very subtle, light experience of the self. And the gross nature of the body seems to have more influence over us because we don't spend enough time being that which we are being. We're not humans having spiritual experiences. We're spiritual beings having human experiences. So becoming mindful keeps reminding us to be in the moment. And when we really spend more time being in the moment, it allows us to really create that connection with, you can call it the higher self. You can call the lower self the physical body with the emotions and the ego and those aspects that react to reality. and the higher self as the aware self. And the higher self really is very, can be very attuned to God consciousness, because it's that high state of awareness which is beyond the need of bodily experience. Yet that when the fact that we incarnated as human beings means we're here to have these experiences, to resolve aspects of consciousness or humanness to a way that it becomes beneficial for everyone around us. So this was the answer to the question before. So consciousness is empowered through its ability to express and experience itself. I want to stop for a moment and ask if there are any questions or any thoughts. Is this making sense? Yes, no?
Yes.
Was that a yes or a no? Okay, we'll move on. So I pretty much I answered this one. What is or what are the different experiences by which consciousness becomes aware? And I mentioned, the body, emotions, thoughts in the mind, and the intellect, which is intuition and feelings. These are tools of awareness. Now, if you think of the body and our connection to the body as being, there has to be a way in which the being has experiences that allow us to have a sense of reality. And it's through these connections, these tools of consciousness that we feel as though, wow, I'm a human and I can feel, touch, smell, taste, hear, speak, etc., etc., etc. And then I have experiences with my surroundings. The issue that's taking place, I think, in today's life is that most people are living as humans and they leave their beingness out. And we can say the beingness really is the spiritual aspect of being human. And that's consciousness awareness, the spirituality. It's the science of the spirit. And the science of the spirit is consciousness. Consciousness holds the key to understanding truth. So aware consciousness is empowered through the application of knowledge. And that we can connect the word knowledge here to the intellect. The intellect is the tool of knowledge. The intellect is knowledge itself. But most of the time we don't rise to that place. We rise to what the mind is telling us, how the mind is programmed. And I think you can all understand that our minds are programmed. Depends on the way you were brought up. Your upbringing programs you, the school you went to programs you, your friends you hang out with program you, the religion you follow programs you, the political party that you're affiliated with programs you. That's not knowledge. That's our belief systems. And our belief systems aren't always knowledgeable. They're just what we believe that allow us, again, to create an identity and form an ego by which we then have an experience of life and determine values. What we've lost here is understanding is what we're holding as our belief systems and identifying with as our characteristics, our personality. Is it bringing values? Is it presenting itself from a value base? Knowledge is about values. When you are knowledgeable, it brings values. That's all it does. It offers values. It elevates things. It brings benefit to things. So if we're acting angry, it's not knowledge because there's no benefit in it. You're not benefiting yourself because we know that anger can cause the capillaries in the brain to burst. It causes, we harm more people with our anger than people harmed by getting hit with a stick. So it's not knowledge-based if it's causing pain and hurt and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it is when we're really aware consciously or aware consciousness, we're empowered by knowing. So we can discern. So again, we're moving up beyond the experience. We're not getting caught up in the energy or the scenarios or the story we're telling ourselves or the story someone else is telling us or how we emotionally feel about it. Yeah, we record all those things, yet now we have to discern what is the truth or what is not the truth or what is keeping us from maturing or what is a part of a belief system that needs to be upgraded. Knowledge is like an upgrade, and we constantly have to upgrade. If we're not upgrading, then we're not maturing and we're not evolving, and it means we're really living in that lower aspect of body consciousness, and we're giving our power away. Perception is awareness. How you see things is the extent of your awareness or the extent of not being aware. And we can have arguments with people if we choose, where they're saying something is a certain way and you're saying, or someone else is saying, no, it's this way. What we're talking about in that situation is the different perceptions based on where their conscious awareness is or is not at all. So it really doesn't make sense to have an argument at all because a person is saying, I'm perceiving this through my emotions, and because I'm perceiving it through my emotion and I relate consciously to my emotions, this is the way I see it. And another person can say, no, I'm seeing this through my thoughts, and the way I relate to life is through living in my head. So therefore you can't be right, and the way you're perceiving it is wrong. In a sense, they're both right and they're both wrong because their perceptions are limited by their view or their awareness and use of consciousness. So really, when someone is, and I can turn this in a different direction. So if someone is saying something to you and they're insisting that they're right and you're wrong or this is the way, all they're saying is, can you perceptually see it from my point of view? That's all they're saying. And we might say you're wrong, but maybe they're right, just perceiving it differently. Their awareness based on their past circumstances, situations and things, maybe hurt, pain, maybe, again, they live in their emotions or their mind, or it's more about the way things look. So in a situation like that, it tells me, oh, I get this person. They really live through their emotions. So maybe if I can choose to see it through their eyes now, perhaps I'll get a glimpse at this from another perspective or their perception of it, and I can even appreciate them more because now I understand them more. So I've empowered myself greatly because now I'm saying, whoa, I never thought about looking at it from that point of view. I can see it, that allows me to have a greater understanding. I can see that I can look at it from a knowledgeable place and accept what they're saying. May not necessarily want to agree, but I can accept it because I'm now seeing it through their eyes, through their feelings, through their thoughts, through their past experience, through their hurt, through their pain, through their love, through their desire. So now I'm not limiting my scope of consciousness. I'm opening my scope of consciousness up, that I'm aware of all possibilities that may suit a circumstance, situation, person, a place, or thing. So I become greatly empowered. And I am now drawing more from being and the intellectual awareness, or the intellectual mind of spirit. You know, we have the mind of the body, and we have the mind of spirit, which is the intellect. So that's the question I been asking. That's what I've been talking about. And then we move to, and these are the areas I have expressed. I trust that you get a sense now that, you know, if we're looking at the physical body, 5 senses, glands, you know, we have adrenaline, cortisol, we have norepinephrine. I mean, we have so many ways the body secretes hormones that affect, and especially if you're a woman, you know about this because things happen more than they happen with men, and it changes your perception of reality. Yet when we understand that, when we're consciously aware, we go, oh, I understand why I'm more emotional today. It's because such and such is happening. So I can then really work to keep myself mindful of my emotions so I can mitigate the way I respond or prevent myself from reacting. So I'm aware of the consciousness that comes through the body. And then feelings and emotions. Where feelings, I'm connecting again more so towards the intellect and intuition, and the emotions, I'm connecting more to the mind, thought, body. Mind, thought, body, feelings, intellect, intuition, spirit, consciousness itself. What does all this have to do with becoming empowered through the embodiment of our experience? Does anyone care to answer that question? Or are you all content just having me talk? So we simply put, the more consciously aware we are of all the aspects of what makes us what we are or who we are, when we're more aware that our personality is not who we are. Our personality is the sum total of the experiences that we've taken from life and how we've integrated within ourselves as thoughts, which trigger emotions that affect the body. But they're not who we are. It's like being locked into a loop. And that loop is not conscious. So not until we're, and going back to that definition in the beginning, aware of patterns, not until we realize, oh, this belief pattern is causing me a lot of problems. This belief pattern causes me to get angry when I relate to certain people about this subject. This belief pattern is making me become attached to this individual, and that attachment and my expectations from that is making me angry when they don't fulfill them. That's not empowerment. Empowerment is recognizing, why am I doing this? It doesn't make any sense because I'm acting out of my personality and I'm not evolving. I'm not maturing. I'm not using my knowledge. So therefore I can't be consciously aware, because if I'm consciously aware, I'll act more knowledgeably about the circumstances and situations that I'm engaged in a way that brings not only benefit to me, but to everyone I experience and everyone who offers me their experience. That's power. So therefore, consciousness, aware consciousness itself, is power. It's not about right or wrong, or who's, who is better or worse, because there is really no better or worse. Again, it's all perception. It's all a way you look at it based on your belief system. So if we're entangled in that, we've already given our power away. We've given our power away of making choices based on a belief that has been scripted to us through the experience of our life, which is based on body, conscious, identity, religion, socioeconomical state, political party, color of skin, gender, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where none of those things are us. They're just the cover on the facade that allows us to have certain experiences. And the more we understand that, then we can not allow those experiences to interfere with our maturing, with our empowerment, because those things disempower us because they create an illusion as to what the truth is. So the last time I was a presenter, I presented this. And it's the interesting thing about this, which one are you? The pen, the pad, the pen, the hand, or the space it's happening? The space that it's happening. I left out certain factors. Anyone care to guess what's not stated here that's probably taking place at the same time? Well, what's not here is the thoughts. So the pad, the pen, and the hand, and the space it's happening in wouldn't take place without thoughts, and probably would not take place without emotions. Because those things are what created the decision to grab the pad and the pen and the hand and determine what's going to be written. So when we're consciously aware, we're also looking at that experience in the place of being aware of what we're choosing to do with this circumstance or situation. How am I going to use this in an empowering way? So I am the consciousness that drives all these things. I'm the consciousness that allows this moment in time to happen. So self-aware, that last line, I realized that W should be an E. Keystroke away. Now do you understand consciousness and how it flows throughout all of your perceptions? Has your higher sense of consciousness awakened into being self-aware? That's a question to you guys. Do you have a greater sense of your power and how to use it? So you're all still determined to be silent.
I was going to say, I think I do, but I'm also thinking, why does it feel easier said than done?
The doing is the using the power of discernment. You have to have that period of discernment. You have to have a conversation with yourself. And I literally talked to myself. I said, okay, why is this happening? What does fear come to tell me? Fear is a tool also. Fear happens, so therefore it's a tool of consciousness, because consciousness needs to experience something called fear to understand my relationship to what has happened or what is happening. So as soon as I can't have that conversation, I say, wow, why am I afraid? What is fear telling me? What am I not seeing, or what am I believing about what is happening that's causing this fear? So what can I do differently? So I may go into meditation with it. I may even write about it. I may, before I go into meditation, I can say, okay, I'm going into meditation to understand why I'm experiencing fear. And then in meditation, I can even say, okay, fear, I want you to come to me and tell me why I'm afraid of this situation. And you can say it 2, 3, 4 times. And then you can just meditate. And as soon as you come out of meditation, you can grab your pen and pad, which you have right next to you, and write without thinking. Don't think, just write, right? Because as soon as you start thinking, you've changed the process from the intellectual aspect of consciousness, and you brought it back into your body awareness. So the whole practice is, how do I use how do I make this, do I bridge from human to being? That's what makes it complicated. That's why Raj Yoga meditation exists, to understand. That's why it's eye-open meditation. So while you're meditating, your eyes are open and you're able to really peel away those external aspects of consciousness and experience yourself, experience consciousness in its purest form possible, and realize, wow, this is me. This is where I hold my power. So then it's learning how to transition from experiencing your power and bring it into your everyday life. Even if it's not right away, but remind yourself. There were times I'd go to make trips to the bathroom, at work, to go to the bathroom, not to go to the bathroom, but I needed to sit and I needed to reconnect the human to the being, because the being needed to be there to hold the atmosphere of peace, to hold the atmosphere of power, to hold the atmosphere of understanding, so that I had a deeper understanding. And you can even call it an overstanding, because we can understand something, but it doesn't mean that we're understanding from the place of being not attached to the results. So it's about creating a process. It's not going to be like, it's a process. You have to keep reminding yourself. You have to keep remembering, who am I? I am not the experience. Why am I tying myself to the experience? Why do I believe this when it's causing so much misery? What do I need to do? This is the conversation you constantly have to have with yourself. And then automatically you'll find that when things are happening, you're already answering the question. No, if I do that, I know what's going to happen, so I'm not going to do it. I'm getting too attached to this situation, so I need to step back. But it's a practice. It's a practice. Does that help?
I have a comment, Tyrone.
Sure.
Okay. Now, my experience, what I'm experiencing is fear. When I see a particular thing, it's in my consciousness. And when I see that thing, that fear is brought into existence. And whenever I see that thing again, it's going to come up. How much of meditation will take it? It's not going to take it away. It's there, it's in my existence. And when I leave my home, whatever I do, it's a fear of whenever that happens or whenever I see it, it comes again. So it is in my consciousness. It's embedded in my psyche. How will I, it's a real experience that I'm talking about. So
yeah, I would say first you need to create a relationship with your fear. Because when we look at fear as something we're rejecting, therefore we cannot become aware of what the fear is come to tell us. Fear is a messenger. It has to tell us something about our belief or perspective. So when we say, well, I'm not conscious enough about this fear, I'm in reaction to the fear. And if I'm in reaction to the fear, it means I'm running away from the experience or the feeling or the emotions or the thoughts that come along with the emotion. Maybe I'm not afraid of the circumstance or situation at all, I'm just reacting to what my body and mind and emotions are telling me. You follow where I'm so far?
Yes.
So write about it. You know, that's why I say fear, you know, what do you come to tell me? What do I need to know about you? What is the message you have for me? And then you need to identify, where is it in my body? What thoughts do I attach to this fear? So this is becoming consciously aware. You know, if you can see the color green, but then you can say, oh, this is yellow and blue, which makes green. So when we have fear, fear is not fear itself. Fear is a component of an experience. So it's not about the fear, it's about the experience behind the fear. So if you don't create a relationship, if you don't become more conscious of the experience of fear, then you can't see why you're having it. You can write about it. Write about what happens. Write about what you believe it's connected to. This is creating more awareness of it. So then when it happens, you can say, oh, I know what's going on. I just need to really breathe now. That's another tool. But when we breathe, we bring more oxygen to the brain. So this is, again, being conscious of the body. So fear, what fear does is it restricts, it pretty much causes us to constrict ourselves. We stop the flow or slow the flow to the brain. The frontal cortex, which is the thinking brain, is blocked because the amygdala, which is part of the midbrain, takes over and starts running a program. It's an automatic program. So you have to get to a place where you get ahead of the program. Because if you don't, it's automatic. It doesn't mean the situation of circumstances still really would affect you the same way, but it's a program. So you have to move to understanding the program. And then when you meditate, you can say, what do I need to go beyond this fear? What do I need? What do I have to envision that I am capable of doing? So in the meditation, you can visualize yourself doing it. You can visualize the fear coming up and saying, oh, fear, you're here. Oh, you're here to tell me just to be slow, take my time, pay attention. Thank you, fear, for coming. I will do those things and I'll take my time and move forward. That's what's creating a relationship with the fear. When I was on the side of the boat, you better believe I was afraid. But I knew that I passed the test. I knew that I passed the test in the pool. I knew I had all my equipment on. I trusted the person who trained me. So I just now had to overcome the automatic program within my body. So what your fear may be is that automatic program within your body. So you have to work with it, not reject it, not push against it. You know, you can start by saying, fear, you're here. You must be here for a reason. I've been rejecting you and not taking your messages for a long time. I want to sit down now and understand why you're here. Just doing that changes your relationship with the fear. But if you see it as a bad thing or a fearful thing or a frightening thing, then the change can never take place. That's the difference between keeping the consciousness in the body and bringing it into the being. Consciousness really has no fear because it's knowledgeable. So when we can move the fear to a knowledge-based system, knowing that the fear is still recorded within the mind and the body, then we start mitigating the level of fear so we can approach it in a way that we can mature or evolve beyond the circumstance, because it's really the emotions that hold us in there. So we're tied to the emotional feeling or experience, and that's what's making us more afraid than the situation itself. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you.
And that's pretty much what we've been talking about. What is an experience? It's perception. And experience also is dependent on how it affects the body, what senses it excites, is the senses excites, creates a degree of emotions. What thoughts are connected to emotion? Each emotion probably have thousands of different thoughts. So two people can have the same emotional feeling, but have different thoughts run through their mind because they're programmed differently based on the emotion, where it took place, what smells were there, who was in the room, what sounds in the background. I think you're getting this. So we're programmed. Our identity is a program. And we have to learn meditation is the perfect place, because consciousness is the programmer. So when we start learning how to process our experience beyond the body by, writing about it, having a conversation with it, using tools to mitigate the emotional experience, taking it into meditation, then we're using our power. So we're unlearning to relearn. We're unlearning to relearn. And the relearning is when we have the experience saying, no, this is not benefiting me. So this is a learned experience. This fear isn't a learned experience. So I have to now work to dissect it so I can unlearn it by taking it apart and understanding its components. And then I can implement within this what I need so that I can approach the situation from a different perspective. Experiences are talking to us. Experiences are just tools for learning. And when we start seeing it that way, it takes it out of the body. Not like, oh, look what's happening to me. No, it's, oh, look what the experience is being brought to me. One thing I started telling myself, life is like a mother who brings us experiences so we can learn. So when things happen, I found myself at one point saying, it took me a while to say it, is I'm having such a horrible day, but that's good. Because now I can pay attention to why I've considered horrible. What is this feeling of horrible coming from? What belief system am I attached to that I'm deciding things are horrible? So once I discover that, I can have the same experience and it could be a joyful day. Perception, conscious awareness, moving it out of the experience of the body, which is just a tool. The pad, the hand, and the pen doesn't tell me what's being written. I tell the hand, the pen, and pad sitting on the desk in my office what I'm writing. So the experience is driven by me. And that's what we're talking about, driven by consciousness. So life is an experience. So life is just a chain of learning events. Simply a chain of living, learning events. Where is the information of the experience held? Which aspect of consciousness usurps the energy of consciousness from flowing throughout all levels of consciousness to rest in the intellect or intuition? So some of us hold our experiences in our body, and then we end up that those experiences could be called dis-ease, stress, anxiety. Some of us hold it in our emotions, and that could be worry, anger, grief. Some of us hold it in our mind, and that connects to what's going on emotionally. The more conscious we are, we allow ourselves to feel what the body is telling us. We allow ourselves to feel what the emotion and thoughts are telling us. And then we discern it. We move it up. Now, although this is a picture of the chakra system, it kind of tells you, where the lowest one is the physical body, the second one is emotions, the third one here is the will, it's our personality, our ego. The heart is really very akin to a higher self, or to understanding love from the place of spirit, which is a power. And then we have truth. The closer it gets to consciousness, the more it's just the awareness is based not on the bodily experience, but based on the knowingness of consciousness. Intuition and intellect, which is the pink one that's close to the top. And then the top one, which is called the crown, is where consciousness kind of holds itself, where consciousness enters and flows back up and forth. So when we can balance that, when we can allow ourselves to experience something, but not hold it in one place, so that we can discern the message, that's when we've come to a good place. So as we move close to meditation here, and perhaps, is there any questions before we move to meditation? I know that was a lot. And hopefully it's going to keep you thinking for a while. And hopefully when you have an experience and you feel, taken back or concerned or overwhelmed, that you stop in that moment and say, wait a minute, I need to not allow these experiences to infiltrate, not to hold me in the experience. I need to really be able to discern and move beyond the limitation of that moment and allow myself to really grow through bringing it to a place where it's not being held by the ego, so that I can mature the ego. Because there is the body ego, but then there's the spiritual identity. And spiritual identity takes place when we mature the body ego, when we move beyond our identity, our physical identity, and realize this is just our vehicle, our instrument of learning, our instrument of expressing. Consciousness cannot express without a body, particularly within a reality where other consciousness can perceive the experiences. Yet we need to do it from that place of spirituality or from aware consciousness, so that when we relate to each other, we don't hurt or take sorrow. We don't give sorrow or we don't take sorrow. That we can rise above the misunderstanding and come to a place of growth through misunderstanding. And in turn, what happens, forgiveness happens automatically, because we then realize, oh, I understand why this happens or why it happened. So I have to be thankful because it happened, because now I can grow. So even though they said that and I felt horrible about it, now I've learned something about myself that I was not willing to see before. But since I'm not holding that experience in the sense of low self-esteem or, or just feeling emotionally hurt, then having all the thoughts, oh, that person is, why did they say that? So again, you can see where the consciousness is. We're believing that our thoughts is knowledge-based. We're believing that our emotions are knowledge-based, but all they are is our interpretation of the experience based on our body consciousness. So even when we were talking about fear, what is it in our nature that caused the fear initially? What were we fearful of? And once we identify what we're fearful of, that's when we realize, oh, I need to grow there. That's the part that is still immature. Because if I wasn't immature, if I grew beyond this, I wouldn't have fear about it. So there's something I'm holding in my mind, something I have to uncover. Any other questions or thoughts? I know that was a lot. It was a trip down the rabbit hole, but we all need to go down the rabbit hole every now and then, because we take so much for granted. We want to live in a calm, simple life where everything works out perfectly all the time. We don't want anyone to disturb our space, but that's not realistic. Life is about, pushing us to grow. Life is about evolving us. And if we're constantly in resistance, that's what the pain is. That's where the conflict is. Instead of resisting, accept it. Say, oh, you're here to teach me something. What can I learn? And evolve and keep evolving. And we're in a place now in the world today where we need to evolve. We're having conflicts because we're all living through our ego identity. And we all want to be right. And we all want to make someone else wrong. I don't necessarily mean that exactly. I think you have a sense of what I'm saying. So, but if we realize there's no right or wrong, it's just lessons to be learned, then we can accept every moment as an enriching moment that's there for one purpose, to empower us. Can you imagine that? That when you have an experience, and even when in the beginning you're frightened by it or whatever, you go, wow, this is here to empower me. No matter how it appears, because again, it's only perception, it's there to teach me. Maybe it's teaching me that my perceptions are skewed because I'm carrying a belief system that doesn't really serve me anymore. You know, that's a question I always ask myself. How is this serving me? If it's not really serving me, which means it's not benefiting me and other people, if I'm not growing, evolving, and maturing, then I have to realize there's something about a belief I have that I have to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you, we have about 7 minutes left here, I believe, for you to go into, is my timing right? So meditation is how far away?
It starts in the next 8 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought so. I just wanted to be sure. I'll start, and I'm going to take away my video, and I'll start. And probably around maybe in 15 minutes, I'll end.
Mm-hmm.
And you can proceed. Would that work okay?
Yes, that will be perfect. So you can stop, and then we'll share our screen, and we'll continue from there.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. So we can start by taking a couple of breaths. And the deeper the breaths, the more it really allows us to become present. And even when we take breaths, we want to become aware of what the breath is doing. So as it comes in, if you're breathing through your nose, just to feel it go into the nose, down the windpipe, expanding the lungs, diaphragm. Just feel it. Be a part of the breath. Fully become consciously aware of how the air is flowing in and flowing out. And as we become comfortable breathing and bringing it back into our normal breath, we may let our awareness drift to the body, being aware of the entirety of the body. And as we do so, we recognize that this body, this vehicle, is what carries us through life. It may be a certain size, shape, gender, color. It may sound a certain way. Yet we know that we're not the body. The body is our vehicle. And this vehicle is which allows us to have a human experience. This vehicle is what allows us to take in sensations, develop thoughts, and experience emotions. That is when we allow ourselves to be conscious of the experience of the body. And as we acknowledge the body and appreciate it for what it is, and recognize that it is not that which we are, we can check into our with emotions. Those extreme feelings that move through the body, that influences the brain, it causes certain reactions and responses. But just like the body, we know we're not these emotions. They're just a language that speaks to us, that help us identify with how we label our experiences. And with that, we also look at thoughts. The thoughts, the energy which are projected on the screen of our mind that carries the messages from the past, perhaps even concerns or worries from the future, are projected. These thoughts allow us to be consciously aware of our connection or attachments to things within the physical realm, things that associate with the body, relationships, and people. And we recognize that now we have really can let this all go. We have spent a good deal of time throughout the day expressing and experiencing things from the body and through the identity of the body. Yet it's so important that we give ourselves the time to be the self, become aware, fully aware, and experience the self as the self. You start to experience such a beautiful silence. The silence moves us to such a spacious experience of that which we are. The silence is empowered by the sense of peace. And in experiencing this, we understand that we are this peace too. So lovely is this. Be in the awareness of the self and experience such great, unlimited space of silence and held within the peaceful nature of that which we are. Consciousness itself. Here, feelings are pure. So it's no longer the thought of peace, but it's the awareness of peace, the energy of peace, the feeling of peace. The feeling is quite radiant. As well as self-nurturing. To bask in the nature of the self, to experience the power of being that which we are. And along with this feeling, the nature of this feeling, this silent, peaceful, unlimited space, this beautiful, radiant recognition of self, is the experience of love. This love is consciousness itself. This love is the knowledge of being. This love is who we are. In this all, there is such a freedom, such a deep awareness of such great potential, which is derived from this experience of the self as love, of peace, held within the silent nature of the self, within the radiance of being. Powerful is this. Empowering is this. There's an awakening, a sense of remembrance. As if I've been set free, as if we have all been set free to touch that place and to experience the beauty of our true, loving, peaceful, powerful nature. And as the feeling of this fills me deeply, I recognize my capacity for bliss. It's all part of the same peace, love, power. As power is peace and power is love, as love is peace and love is power, all an aspect of the silent, radiant, conscient experience within the awareness of itself. I will remember this. Yes, I have a body. And the body acts through emotions and thoughts, through the mind. But nothing holds such greatness as that which I am, the being, which drives the body. I will remember this. The blissful, loving, peaceful, powerful beauty, a soul, a consciousness of an aware being. Om Shanti.